This is Tao Unbound, the English language podcast of Tel Aviv University. Please welcome your host, Ido Aharoni, Tel Aviv University's graduate, member of the Board of Governors, lecturer, writer, and veteran diplomat.
Welcome to yet another episode of Tao Unbound. I'm Ido Aharoni, your host, and it is a great pleasure to host Professor Iftach Yacoby in our studio. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Iftach, to those of you who don't know, is a product of this university from A to Z. He got his bachelor's degree here, his master's degree, his PhD in biotechnology, and he's a renowned researcher in the areas of food security and plant sciences. And we are going to ask him all about those two things, including his groundbreaking research that received a lot of attention recently. So we usually begin with personal questions. My first question to you is, we had a chance to chat a little bit before with the recording, and you told me that you came from a very famous agricultural farming community called Kfar Hes. Tell us about growing up in Kfar Hes, and what should we know about Kfar Hes?
So, as I just said, my dad was a genuine farmer, and actually it's a generation of farmers. I think the family came to Israel at 1871, the first time. And we have this disease, this bacteria that we need to take just this uncropped land and become it green and successful. And that was my childhood.
And your family is specialized in what kind of crop?
As a kid, I was specialized in mangoes, avocados, and citrus.
Wow!
Orchard.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, all the good stuff.
And when did you realize that you want this to be your career, agriculture?
I think that it was when I was a kid, and my father and I was very busy in building some fence against theft from the field, and we were looking over the mountain, and my dad told me, "Look, you guys here in the land of Israel, you need to stay strong for at least 100 years before the oil will run out, and then we can have more neutral attitude against us in this area."
So it's interesting. So your father was making a correlation, a connection between the fact that our enemies have oil, which gives them the depth and the maneuverability and so on, and our reply should be food security, right? To be secure through food, the ability,
or energy security.
Or energy security. So self-sufficiency was a key to your father's generation.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting question. Are we living up to that promise? I don't know. Let's talk about it later. So you decided to go and study plant sciences, biology, and chemistry here at Tel Aviv University. And what was your main area as a young researcher?
So actually, it was a kind of, in science, always it's never like that. It's always like in you are a lot of turn. So it was microbiology and neuroscience, but during my master and my PhD, but always my dream was hydrogen gas. I think since youth, I was one of those kids who turn apart batteries and mix that with some clean liquid from my mother.
So tell us about, because I know nothing about it, and I'm sure that many of our listeners and viewers don't know much about hydrogen. Tell us, what is it, why is it important for our future?
So the main passion about hydrogen is that, first of all, as a kid, it's a very nice thing to blow up. It's a very good way to impress your friend. But when you look from the energy perspective, you speak about an energy coin that if you burn it, the only pollution you have is water vapor. You don't have any carbon footprint. That's one thing. Second thing, that the most common substance in the universe. And lastly, if you compare it, 1 kilogram of hydrogen versus 1 kilogram of gasoline or any other carbon-based fuel, it contains 3 times more energy.
So, given everything you said, which makes perfect sense, how come it did not become the main form of energy production?
The main problem is that it's very hard to find just hydrogen on the planet. the thing is that hydrogen is the weight of hydrogen is so small that it's the only substance that can actually escape gravity. It's so light that it can escape the gravity, and free hydrogen simply escape to the space. Therefore, it never accumulates in the atmosphere. Maybe it accumulates in some geological. That was actually one of the most hottest things, finding gaseous hydrogen in geological reserve. It's called white hydrogen. And so it was not available to us like oil or gas or something like that. That's one thing. Meaning from the geological perspective. From the production perspective, we need to invest a huge amount of energy in order to produce it, either by electrolysis, meaning take electricity, and by electricity to break apart water to the two substances that form it, hydrogen and oxygen. And using green energy to produce hydrogen, green energy, it means energy that comes from either wind power. That's what we call green hydrogen production. The main problem with that, the main challenge in that, is that the amount of energy, the amount of money that you need to invest in order to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen, just from the energy perspective, is something around between $3 to $5. Just the energy of electricity to produce it. You need to add to that the price of the electrolyzers and all of those things, which make it also it's feasible, and we have all the technology to do it. It's simply too expensive.
Isn't it what people used to say about water desalination too?
Sorry?
This is what people used to say, especially economists, decades ago, about water desalination. They said it's not, it's too expensive, and so let's not do it. Thank God that Israel's government decades ago did not listen to them and invested in desalination. And today, we produce all the water that we need for, especially for agriculture. And the question is, do you see the same scenario happening with the production of hydrogen for energy purposes?
That's a hard question, because there are some physical barrier, what we call thermodynamic, which means what is the minimal amount of energy that we need to invest in order to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen. And I think the answer here is not more the physics, it's more about taxation. Because currently, for example, in any liter of gasoline that you buy, 2/3 of the price that you pay is actually taxes. So if tomorrow morning the whole government around the world will decide that we want green hydrogen to become a reality, and we simply skip taxation of it, it can be reality tomorrow morning with the technology that we have today. We don't need to invent anything new. It's important to understand. But since taxation or zero taxation cannot last for forever, eventually we need to produce new technologies that will allow us to produce hydrogen. And another question that come up is, in what way? So are we going to develop solution for private houses, private farms? Or again, we need some huge power plant like Hadera or Reading that will feed millions of people. That's another way of thinking that we need to reconsider, because it can change a lot. So, for example, I give you an example. If a house has its own solar panels and use some of this energy to store it, and that's what people actually start doing. It's happening these days. It's omit the extreme necessity to have something huge like Reading or Hadera power plant.
So you're talking about maybe the concept should be the decentralization of the energy production, and then it makes more sense. Let's talk a little bit about food security, and again, you tie it to energy security. For you, it's the same bucket, and I think it makes perfect sense. So educate us. What is food security? Why is it important? There are many people that live under the impression that the humanity is producing enough food, and maybe the question is the food is not being distributed properly. Maybe the problem is distribution. Maybe the problem is the quality. What type of food is being produced? Maybe it's the wrong kind of nutrition that people are getting. So what is food security?
I would like to use a different term.
Please.
I would like to use the term protein security.
Protein. Interesting.
Food, it contains carb and oils and proteins. But if you look, for example, on what is the daily need for a kid, kids is the thing which most matter for us. And a kid should have something like 50 grams of protein per day. And the question, how do you secure this amount of protein for a given kid? And the amount of land, water that is needed to produce either beef or poultry or fish is huge. And the differences between them are huge. But what if we can provide protein only based on plant source, and more precisely on algae, and more precisely on microalgae source? So the main motivation that I would like to educate and suggest today is revolutionary thinking about the protein source. And I would like, in your permission, to start speaking about microalgae.
Please.
So when you go out there, in any green pond that you see, it usually becomes green. And that because of microscopic organisms, which are called microalgae. And there are hundreds of different species all over the world. And they can grow in any condition, either from the coldness of Antarctica to the heat of the Negev Desert in Israel. And you can find specific species everywhere. And those amazing creatures, if you just analyze the biomass of them, it's 50% protein. And it's all available, unlike a land plant that contain a lot of cell wall and all of those material that we cannot digest. Algae are free protein. You can get it just as is. And why I'm speaking about that? Because we are very interested in another process that this microalgae can do, unlike higher plants, and that's the process of genuine hydrogen production directly using the sun power. Meaning we don't need the photovoltaic panels, we don't need nothing. We can grow them, have the biomass using agriculture, fertilizer.
Now, wait a second. When you say you can grow them, where you're going to grow them?
That's the beauty of it. You can grow them anywhere. Because, for example, the idea is to use uncultivated land, for example, extremely salty land or even in the sea, to grow this kind of algae. Use seawater. So we will not consume tap water, and we will not consume fertile land to produce the protein that we need.
Now, is this a dream or is it already happening? Are there any microalgae farms right now?
In Israel, actually, Israel is quite a pioneer in that field. So there are several companies in Israel who are already producing microalgae, tons of them. The most famous one was in Ketorah. When you are driving to the Negev, you see these red pipes there, and they producing the algae that contain the red color, which is important for salmon feeding. The red color of salmon in nature comes from microalgae, and you have to feed them when you grow them in our way by farming. You have to feed them with those kind of algae. Another farm is in Kibbutz Gan Shmuel. It's called bar algae. This farm is called bar algae. They grow something like between 10 to 8 different species. Some of them go to biscuits.
Yeah, and I saw the end product there is actually a powder. Right. I was there. I visited there a few years ago.
Why I'm so interested about the bio, that was not my main interest. As I say, the main interest was hydrogen. So in the last few years, we have a huge breakthrough where we found that specific mutant, not an engineered mutant, like all the the apple that we have today, the avocado that we have today, the cereal that we have today, all of them are mutant of the original strains that contain more tasty fruit, or they contain larger biomass. So we could find a mutant of algae that can produce hydrogen for days. In nature, hydrogen production takes place like for 2 minutes or something like that. So we were able to isolate this mutant, and we were able to scale up the process. So actually, we are on the verge of taking that into industry phase, because the university need to give the last push for scale up. And by doing all of this economic analysis, we found out that something like around 20 kilograms of biomass can produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen per day.
So what you were able to do is to use an existing, what you call mutant, not engineered, right? This is natural, that allows the production of energy, instead of last 4 minutes, to last 20 hours, right? That's what you're saying.
Actually, 5 up to 20 days in a row.
5 unto 20. So this is dramatic in terms of the efficiency of the capacity to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're saying is Tel Aviv University is on the verge of taking this one step further, turning it into a commercial enterprise.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
This is exciting, but now I'm speaking from the farmer perspective. So you have 20 kilograms of biomass that can produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen per day. The 20 kilogram of biomass is 10 kilograms of pure protein with all the amino acid and vitamin that people need. So the farmer thinking, and not the scientist thinking, okay, now I must turn this 20 kilogram into a tasty product that people would like to have. And my vision...
And so, wait, before we go to your vision, explain what you say tasty product. What kind of product could be?
A product that you would like to take a bread and to use it like a Philadelphia cheese and just put that over your bread.
And they'll give you the protein that you need.
That's my farming vision that I need. And because only consumption of hundreds of tons of algae per day will justify growing them in the first place and producing also hydrogen. And that's the reason why I see microalgae as a genuine green coin, with one side of energy security and the other side is food security or protein security. So we are at the same point as our ancestors stood here like 20,000 years ago when the agriculture revolution started. Okay, we have some products that we can eat instead of hunting those mammoths. So let's try grow them, and instead hunting, and we can actually sit in our place. We can build houses and we can initiate farming. And for doing that, you must find new species that are tasty. And that's exactly what we need to do today with algae. There are hundreds of strains out there. Why I'm so crazy about that? Because we had one field experiment with one algae called Chlorella hardy that was isolated like 15 years ago in the Negev desert. And I remember coming to the field. We got money to build like 6,000 liters experiment. And I saw the worker in the field taking the paste of this algae and doing exactly what I told you. They took pieces of bread and they used this paste like Philadelphia cheese. And I almost, I almost fall because I thought it's crazy doing what they are doing, because I never saw a person eating microalgae before. I was shocked. And then I simply tasted. And for me, and I grow avocado for years, it was like a combination of avocado and salmon together. It was amazing taste. And since then, I have the dream that to see hundreds of high school students just collecting new species, specimen, and we need to establish some tasting initiative of new species, exactly like our Flintstone forefathers done.
Yeah. So let's talk about that company that you're talking about, because I think many of our viewers and listeners may be interested in that. So what needs to happen now? So the I'm assuming you're talking about the technology transfer company of Tel Aviv U, right? So you're in the process of establishing a company. The science already exists, right? You already proved the concept. What needs to happen now?
What needs to happen now is to be able to repeat the experiment that we have done in the lab in industrial fermenters. Like when you go to a beer factory and you see this stainless stuff, so we need to be able to show that we can repeat the process that we have done in glass vessel, that we can repeat doing this in industrial beer-like fermentation process. It's more or less the same. So what I see in my vision is something like a beer tank. For example, let's speak about a building in a city, okay? So we have this kind of tank at the basement of the building, and pipes go to the roof. There, sun can heat the biomass, produce some hydrogen for the purpose of the building people, and then the biomass go out for that, and some company like Nuva or something like that simply collect the biomass on a daily basis. So the hydrogen can be used for the house. Why I give this explanation? Because, for example, I'm driving electrical bicycle for more than 15 years, and my main problem is always the range, between 20 to 30 kilometers. With hydrogen bicycle that you can buy today, 65 gram of hydrogen can give you a range of 150 kilometers. Imagine yourself a building with 1 kilogram you can fuel several dozens of bicycles, and they can drive for a week. So this algae, it can both provide protein to the people in this building and even for more people, and it also can produce them the fuel to fuel their micromobility in the city.
Now let's talk about what Israel could do. In your wildest dreams, what do you think Israel should do, assuming we want Israel to be the world leader in the deployment of your technology when it comes to microalgae?
So I think the first thing that we need to do is to expose the beauty of it since high school or even lower, to let students know, let the pupils know about microorganisms at all. So we need to provide with small initiative. For example, you can buy a microscope iPhone adapters in Amazon for $20, and you can buy 20 for each class that allow the kid to see all this microscopic organism. And then
So this is on the awareness side.
Mm-hmm.
But on the infrastructure level side, what can a country like Israel do? You know, there are countries that want to brand themselves. So in Latin America, there was a country that said, we're going to be the world capital of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Paris wanted to be the world capital of romance. And let's say we want to be the world capital of hydrogen energy. What needs to happen in Israel from a vision point of view on an infrastructural level?
So that's actually what we need to build is like a research farm all over the country that will allow biologists and an engineer to work together, because most of the time we are speaking different languages, and we need designated places where we can work together. For example, now I have a lot of biomass. I need engineer that will design me the vessels to hold them, because I don't have the expertise of doing this.
And where do you think is the place where this meeting took place?
I think the best place is actually within the university. So
within the university.
For example, here in Tel Aviv University, we have the botanical garden, so we can have a section where we can do this kind of research, combining plant sciences and engineering to build new kind of fermenters.
Now, you spent time also at MIT.
Mm-hmm.
And do you see any collaboration on that with MIT?
Actually, MIT kind of left the biological aspect of hydrogen production, and they are more focused in the physics and engineering. That again the problem, that engineers and bio people, they do not have the common language to collaborate. They should collaborate more. And that's something that need to be forced on them from the outside, because sometimes they speak the different languages.
Well, I must say that your vision is very exciting, and I hope that some of the listeners and the viewers of this podcast will be, interested in becoming part of your journey, because I think that you're presenting a vision that is very compelling for Israel, to take this idea and to run with it all the way and to become a world leader. And I'm reminded, because I remember it was during the early days of my career in the Israeli government, when the conventional wisdom was that water desalination is a waste of money and a waste of time. And thank God that the government, I think it was under Ariel Sharon, did not listen to them. And today we're in a different reality. So maybe you're proposing something as dramatic as water desalination for Israel's future. Last question before we conclude. So you've done this, got a lot of exposure for your ideas. What's next for you other than the commercial enterprise?
I'm going now into a new phase in which I would like to study the science behind taste of microalgae. For that, what we are doing, we are collecting new species, and we are developing in the lab fermentation process that will allow us to produce the biomass that is needed for the tasting panels. And lastly, we would like to understand, okay, one thing, if A tastes really good and B tastes really bad, we would like to compare what is the metabolic fingerprint that make A so tasty and B so not tasty.
And based on your research, is taste universal?
It's a hard question, but for that you simply need to gather a panel of at least 10 tasters, and to have, there are common tastes which are bad or not bad, and there are unique tastes. So the idea is to produce common taste, because we are speaking about protein. My dream, my vision, that I want to see my twin celiac daughters eating protein from algae in their school. Then I will feel that I have a success. I want to reach the most common places.
And then just one last question that's very practical for young parents that are listening to us. They have babies and they want them to consume protein, but they don't want them to eat meat. What would you recommend as a biologist and a farmer, really? What would you recommend for them to feed their babies?
Currently, you can buy in the supermarket Israeli spirulina, frozen spirulina. And you can even drink that in cafe or in riba. So it's totally pure Israeli spirulina, which is kind of microalgae. It contains a lot of protein, and it is an amazing product.
And it's tasty.
At least it's neutral. When it's fresh, it's neutral. That's the main thing of that.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Yacoby. We could spend a lot more time discussing your vision. Very exciting. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing this and educating us. And I'm sure that we will hear more about you in the future, given your energy and your really relevant area of interest. So thank you, and thank you, our listeners and our viewers. And from Tel Aviv, goodbye until our next episode.